Does marketing and content creation ever feel hard and time-consuming? What if it didn't have to be that way?
Join Rob Drummond,
Matthew Bliss,
and me, Pete Daly-Dixon, your ideal companions on the journey to a value-first approach to business growth, here on Help Before You Sell.
Every business strategy comes with what economists call an opportunity cost. In other words, you could always have done something else with your efforts. So how do you know that Help Before You Sell is the right strategy for your business? And if so, what systems do you need in place? Let's jump into the conversation.
So what I'm hearing is that there's certain types of businesses that this model of helping before you sell definitely works for. So people selling high value, high ticket services or products, let's say, where the decision time frame is potentially quite a long time, then yeah, you're going to have to stay in touch with people. They're really going to have to trust you and feel that vibration of like, okay, this feels right to me. I am going to invest when the time is ready.
Yeah.
Who shouldn't do this? Who should sell before they help?
Well, one immediately comes to mind is locksmith. The only help I need is to get into my logged house. But yeah, that's people like that, plumbers maybe. Although
I have a good converse example. I mean, I don't know how you guys pay for haircuts, but
shut up.
A haircut is
shut up.
I'm sorry, Peter.
Pete grows his on his chin.
Yeah, there's a very manicured chin hair situation going on there that maybe yourself, maybe you go out for a bit of a treat and get a close shave going with a barber.
I do.
Either way, they tend not to charge up front. And that's something that you could sprint out the door and never see them again, particularly if you're traveling. Like, there's no way that they're going to track you down.
But you can never go back to the same hairdresser if you do that.
Yes, there is an implied relationship there. Like, you're trusting them with a pair of scissors to cut your hair in the way that you're trying to sometimes establish with very few professional words that a barber or a hairdresser would understand. And, they're trusting that you're not going to sprint out of the shop as soon as they've whipped the cloak off your neck. So that might be a converse example where you're giving value first and then the trust and the relationship comes after. Terrible example, maybe.
It feels to me like there's a scale, doesn't it? Like, yeah, you see, maybe you got strategic coach at one end of the scale and a locksmith. The other thing I was thinking about was a prostitute. One of my old mentors used to talk about the prostitute principle. We're saying, when you're planning on how you're going to bill for your services, remember that even prostitutes get paid up front.
There's a lesson there.
So yeah, you got the locksmith at one end, and that's a business ops question, isn't it? So again, if we're going to show our whiskers for a second, if we were working with an Activate Your Podcast clients, then we do ask them to pay up front, but that's after the helping phase. So it's not cut and dry, I guess. But
I hadn't thought of it like that, Rob. So it actually Help Before You Sell potentially gives you a more robust business, certainly from a cash flow perspective, because maybe all it gives you is the confidence as a business owner to charge up front because of the value that you've given. And that's got to be good for business.
I think so.
I think there is a way to overcorrect on the sell before you help thing that you mentioned, though, because there was a lot of podcasting guru type people that I saw floating around a few years ago who said, don't build a course, don't build a learning product until you have people buy in first and pay you for your time to develop that product, which seems very counterintuitive, I think. From a business perspective, it makes sense because you're getting reimbursed for your time for something that can be sold on after it's complete. It's almost like the crowdfunding version of creating learning content. But the help before you sell aspect of that would be putting in the work up front to build the course before you sell it. And I think a lot of people have been burned by that before just because they're not too sure if it's a skill that they have. It's a thing that they can't practice before they do it.
The way I've always done it with my courses is I've done a live cohort up front. And usually I've offered a discount for people participating in the live cohorts as they are providing the live feedback and live course corrections for me as I develop the course. I think courses are interesting though, isn't it? Because if you're trying to sell a high value ticket item, you might have a course as part of the help before you sell, and it might be paid, it might be free. One of the reasons you might charge for it is because people often don't value what they don't pay for. But it might not be your core revenue driver. It might still be part of your structure that you take people on from first finding you on LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever to spending £10,000 on whatever it is. So I wanted to talk about the structure of a bit of how do we move people from A to B, because it isn't, I think when I've experienced this, when I've experienced people helping me before they've tried to sell, there's been a lot of automation in place and things happening automatically, and a lot of thought has gone into the systems behind it. Because if you leave it to just someone to remember to do, it's not going to happen. And I wondered if we could try and put some flesh on the bones of like, okay, for someone coming into this who doesn't have these systems in place, I would argue that having some middle items that, like a course, which it would be a training item that you might charge for, you might not charge for, that's a good middle part of the process. I think a podcast and a book is a kind of nurture piece that people kind of consume more on their own time is another option. But then rather than trying to do the long jump, where the long jump is going from new contact to 10 grand sale in one leap, you're now doing the triple jump where you go hop, skip and jump. And the world record for triple jump is much further than it is for long jump.
Great analogy.
I like it.
I think ultimately it comes back to the word that Matt's used a few times and that Gord Vickman used on that episode of Podcast Payoff is about the relationship. And I think the more things that you have in your business that allow you to cement's not the right word, but to nurture the relationships that you have with people that come into your orbit, the easier it will be to tap the ball into the hole on the green. You know, whether it be a book or whether it be a course or whether it be a webinar or whether it be a series of blog articles or whether it be a podcast or you know, there are plenty of ways that you can help before you sell. You know, we have a thing, don't we? It's like hat and glove. You know, it can either be hard and time consuming. You know, setting up a webinar sounds like a great idea, and there's one-to-many aspect of there as well. But there's a lot of moving parts in a webinar, not least of which the getting bums on seats and then following up with them afterwards. Going back to the simplify thing you were talking about earlier, Rob, I prefer the glove approach. You know, where you can be generous, you can be loving, you can be opulent, provide value, and easy. It's like, you know, if I'm making a choice between hat and glove, I'm going to go with the glove every time. But you're right.
Most marketing is hard and time consuming. I think when you're not a professional marketing person and you don't do this day in, day out, you don't spend 12 hours of each day plugged into LinkedIn or Google or some other platform. And you've got other stuff to do.
Like serve your customers, like help your customers that have paid you money.
Yeah, like so for me, it comes back to energy. Like with all the best will in the world, you might really want to help your clients before you sell to them. But if you've only got a small amount of energy to put into it, so it does need to be easy. It does need to be glove. Otherwise you're not going to do it. And then once you've got the intention, I think you do then need the systems. Yeah. Like you are going to need a CRM system. You are going to need certain core tools to deliver this automatically and at scale.
You said CRM there, and I think the three-letter CRM have come to kind of encompass all kinds of business tool, really. So marketing automation. I'm thinking more an automation system with email marketing in there as well. It's often part of a CRM system, but not always.
If we break it down, customer relationship management, like that surely is a system for helping before you sell.
Yeah, well, I hadn't thought of it like that. That's great.
The one thing I wanted to mention on structure actually was something that I did a few years ago was I rebranded my business as the Maze Mastery Agency, which was a model of marketing follow-up that a consultant called Perry Marshall teaches. And the idea behind the maze is that people enter your world, and because there's this kind of orbit of like how they get to know you, the maze is a structure for how you nurture people and move people into your world. So people opt into your email list, for instance, and you might have, say, 6 emails, and the emails go content, gateway, content, pitch. So the pitch, the sell comes on email 6, and the content could be a mixture of story and content, let's say. The gateway is a branchway into another sequence of 6, content, gateway. So if you think about it, you got content, gateway, content, pitch going across horizontal, and you got another one going up. As you go up, you get to the first gateway, and then you got another one going across sideways. And because this is based on the Fibonacci sequence, there's some maths behind it where if someone opts in, it's actually quite a long time before they receive multiple emails on one day. Even if they go through every gateway and end up on every one of these sequences, it's actually quite a long time before they receive multiple emails on one day. And the idea is that people who engage with more of your emails end up receiving more emails from you and more pitch emails from you. And the people who just don't really engage with you, don't follow any of the gateways, kind of just drop off and fall off to the back pasture. And that's what we were trying to create. But then when I went through it with clients, like, it was just too complicated for most people. I realized that I kind of fell in love with it because it appealed to all of my nerdish tendencies. But it just doesn't need to be that complicated, which is why I now get people to produce one thing every fortnight and then automate the best of those things, because anyone can do that and it's easy. And so stick to the ease. Don't go to the advanced. If you want to do the advanced solutions and build a maze, by all means, it's very elegant. It does work. You don't have to do that.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Help Before You Sell, sponsored by Activate Your Podcast. To activate your podcast and help the people who most need you and your services, head to activateyourpodcast.com/help. If you found this episode helpful, please also leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And remember, help more to sell more. See you next time.